Now we're going to take a look at Napoleon's ability to split coalition forces so that he can defeat them in detail. This is something he did several times throughout his career, and it prolonged his ability to wage war in many examples, many cases. Here we are in 1809 in Bohemia, which is part of the Austrian Empire, and we find that the Austrians and the Russians have both completed army reform, and they are now fighting Napoleon on a more equal basis than they were before, because they get their full combat values for their leaders and all their subordinates. Here we have Prince Charles and Kutuzov of the Russians. Charles is leading the Austrians. Napoleon's stack is here, and underneath him in this battle he has Lannes, Ney, and Soult. Three excellent commanders. And he will be using Soult to fight the Russians. The reason he's interested in doing that in particular is so he doesn't have to fight both. Now, why would he have to fight both? It's the French turn. They can fight either one they want. But notice that both of these can march to the sound of the guns. They're both army commanders, so they can control 15 factors of units, and they can take 5 leaders with them, which means their entire stack is going to go to the aid of the other. Napoleon has nothing else in the vicinity except for this stack, so he needs to be able to fight this on his own terms. Also, he has the Austrians down to 2 national morale. If he can get them to 1 by defeating them in a significant battle, they'll have to surrender. They'll have to sue for peace, and he can fight the Russians just by themselves without having any Austrians in the picture. So Napoleon declares an attack on Charles. Kutuzov announces that he marches to the sound of the guns, which moves his forces to here. And now we'll move to a sheet of paper where I can lay the units out, and you can see how this battle is resolved. Here we see Napoleon's force against the Austrians. In a separate but simultaneous battle that occurs in the same hex, we'll have the Russians and Soult's screening force fight their own battle. The Russians have a total of 22 combat value. That's obtained by adding the value of the leaders with their associated combat factors. And Soult is worth a total of 8, 4 for the leader and 4 for the infantry. With 22, the Russians will do 9 damage. That's arrived at by looking at the 20 row rather, and that does 8 damage. And then you look at the 2 row, which does 1 damage. So you add those together, it's 9 damage. That's more than enough to kill off the French. They need a total of 8 to wipe them out. And Soult will do 3 back. So, but because the Russians do more damage than the French have, this is a lopsided situation. So the game deals with that by giving the Russians a rebate of the difference. So since they did 9 damage, but Soult can only take 8, they get 1 off of Soult's counterattack. So instead of doing 3, he does 2, which is going to be 1, 2. And the Russians lose this, and the French lose this. However, note, that's not enough for a national morale loss. You have to lose 5 or more for that. So Soult has done his job. Now we take a look at what Napoleon considers to be the main battle. Here we have a total of 20 Austrians, 6, 6, 4, and 4, fighting a total of 10, 20, 4, French. And they don't, this stacking proximity doesn't mean anything. I'm just trying to get them to fit on camera so that you can see them. So Austrians do 20 damage, that's 20 combat factors, that does 8 damage, but there's no spare infantry, unled infantry, so they're going to go for killing off that artillery unit, but 8 isn't enough because it's applied 4 here and 4 here, and so they do finish this off. But remember, this is a separate battle from the one we just fought, so they've only lost 4. Now, not 5. Now, the French attack at their original value, which was 24, and at that level, they will do 8 for the 20 and 2 for the 4. So they're going to do 10 points worth of damage. So they'll spend 6 of it here to kill off that artillery. That prevents additional damage after the melee portion of the battle is done. And that's 6, and then we have 7, 8, 9, 10, and that wipes that out. Now, notice that the Austrians have now lost 5, but their worries are not over. They're going to lose 1 more because the French have an intact artillery, so there's 1 more factor gone, so I'm going to take this 3 off and replace it with a 2. And then we're going to look at the retreat options. And so who won this battle, and the loser will have to retreat. So we're looking at Bellegarde's corps is now worth 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not worth 3 because there's only 2 units there, 2 factors there. Guillaume's force is worth 4, so that's 4 and 4 is 8. But Lannes alone is worth 10. So the French have won the battle. The Austrians have to retreat, and when they do, they're pursued by this cavalry, and they lose yet 1 more. So I'm going to take that 2 off and replace it with this 1. Now let's take a look at how much they've lost in this battle. 7, 8, 9. Well, that is definitely over 5 or more. So they've lost the national morale battle. The French go up a national morale if they're not at already 6. They are at it now probably. And the Austrians, who I said were at 2, go down 1 to a 1. Now, when you get to a 1, everything stops and you resolve the peace accord. So what happens here is the Austrians sue for peace. This is the second time they've been defeated, so Napoleon can choose from those terms that are listed in the diplomacy. And now the French will be able to face the Russians alone in 1809.